Hello ladies and gentlemen, in this video we'll learn how to change a user's email and password using Firebase. As you can see here, I've already got my application up and running, and I've already initialized Firebase by calling firebase.initializeApp and passing in my API key information, which should look something like this. In my test screen, I've already imported the Firebase library, and I'm currently logged in as a user, so we should have everything we need to begin. To start off with, we want to allow the user to change their password, so we're going to give them a text input to type in a new password and a button that will change the password whenever they click on it. So let's start off by adding a text input here, and I've already created some text input styles that I like, so I'll set my style equal to styles.textInput, and I want the value of the text input to be this.state.newPassword. And we need to add this variable to our state, so up here in the constructor we'll set new password to be blank in our state. Back down in the text input, we'll add a couple of attributes here. Let's first set the placeholder equal to new password. Let's turn off auto capitalize, so we'll set auto capitalize equal to none. And we'll also set secure text entry equal to true, since this is a password input field. We also need to handle the onChangeText event, so we'll say onChangeText. And whenever that's called, we'll call this.setState, and we'll set our new password equal to that text. Below that, we'll add a button called Change Password. And when we click on it, it will just call this.onChangePasswordPress, which we can implement right here. OnChangePasswordPress equals this. And changing your password in Firebase is actually very easy. I've got the documentation pulled up right here. All we need to do is call user.updatePassword and provide the new password, and this gives us a promise which has functions for if it's successful or if there's an error. So back in our function, let's first grab the user, which we can get by calling firebase.auth.currentUser. And then we'll call user.updatePassword and supply our new password, which for us is this.state.newPassword. This is a promise, so we can call then, and this will give us a function for if it's successful, and we can call catch, which gives us a function for if there's an error. Now in our functions, let's just alert to the user if it's successful or if there's an error. So we'll say alert.alert, password was changed. And if there's an error, we will alert the error.message. So let's reload that and try it out. I'm going to change my password to AAA and click Change Password. And as you can see, I get an error message here that says this operation is sensitive and requires recent authentication. Log in again before retrying this request. So what we could do in that situation is sign out and log back in, and we should be able to change our password, but that isn't a great user experience. A better experience for the user is to reauthenticate them rather than requiring them to log out. And in order to reauthenticate them, we need their current password. So let's create a new text input that allows the user to type in their current password in addition to their new password, and with that information we should be able to reauthenticate the user. I'm going to copy and paste the text input that we already created in order to save a little bit of typing. So I'll paste that here, and I'll change the value to be current password. Change the placeholder to say current password, and change the onChangeText function to set the current password. And I'll also add current password to the state up here in the constructor. And we should be ready to reauthenticate the user. If we take a look at the Firebase documentation, it shows us that in order to reauthenticate a user, we need to get a credential and then call user.reauthenticate-with-credential and pass that credential in. That function gives us a promise which has functions for if it's successful or if there's an error. So back in our code, we can create a function called reauthenticate, and that will take the current password as an input and we'll reauthenticate the user. The first thing we need to do is get the user object, which we can get by calling firebase.auth.currentUser. Then we'll get a credential, which we'll call cred, and we get that by calling firebase.auth with no parentheses .emailAuthProvider. And this only works because I'm using email and password authentication. If you're using a different authentication method, you'll have to do something slightly different. And then we call the credential function, which takes an email and password as an input. The email we can get from the user object by calling user.email, and the password was passed in to the function as current password. Now we have the credential, so we can call user.reauthenticate with credential and pass in cred. And if you remember, this function returns a promise, so if we return the result of that, then reauthenticate will also return a promise. We can collapse that now. And in our onChange password press function, what we want to do first is reauthenticate the user, and if we're able to reauthenticate them, then we'll attempt to update the password. So we'll call this .reauthenticate, and it needs to pass in the current password, which for us is this.state.currentPassword. And remember, that returns a promise, so we can say .then, and this is the function if it's successful, and down here we can say catch, and this is the function if there is an error. If the reauthentication is successful, we basically want to do what we already had here, which is to update the password. So I'll cut this code and paste it inside of here. And if we're unsuccessful, let's just alert the user the error.message. So let's save and reload and see if that works. My current password is AAA, and I just want to change it to the exact same thing. So I'll type that in and click Change Password. And as you can see, we get the message saying the password was changed. And if I were to sign out and try to log back in, I would be able to use the password that I just created. Changing the user's email works almost exactly the same way, so let's quickly go through that. Let's create a new text input for entering a new email. I'm just going to copy and paste a text input that we already created. And we will change the value to be new email, the placeholder to say new email. We don't need secure text entry because this isn't a password field, but we will set keyboard type equal to email address. That'll give us a good keyboard. And then the onChange text function will set new email to that text. And we'll also add new email as a property of our state. Let's create another button called change email. And when it's pressed, it will call this.onChangeEmailPress. Up here we can implement onChangeEmailPress. And changing the user's email can also give you the reauthentication error. So we once again need to reauthenticate the user first and then attempt to update their email. Let's just copy and paste this code from onChange password press down here. And the only thing we need to change is, instead of calling user.updatePassword, we'll call user.updateEmail, and we'll pass in the new email instead of the new password. And we'll change our alert to say email was changed. Let's save and reload and see if that works. So I first need to type in my current password, and I want to change my email to be b@gmail.com. I'll click change email, and as you can see, it says email was changed. Just to test it out, let's sign out and try to log back in, b@gmail.com, and the password is AAA. We'll click login, and we were successfully logged in. Let's try to change the password from AAA to BBB. I'll click change password. It says it was successful. Sign out and log in as B. And it looks like everything worked. Finally, let's test out getting some different errors. Let's type in the incorrect password and see if we're able to reauthenticate. So I'll type in some random characters and I'll try to change my password to BBB. If I click change password, it says the password is invalid or the user does not have a password, which is exactly what we want, because you shouldn't be able to reauthenticate a user with the incorrect password. You'll also get the standard errors. For example, if I try to change the email to something that isn't an email address, you'll get the error that says the email address is badly formatted. You also have some password restraints, like it needs to be at least 6 letters, something like that. So it says password should be at least 6 characters. So that's all you need to do to change a user's email or password using Firebase, and I highly recommend re-authenticating them in this method rather than asking them to sign out and sign back in before changing their email or password. I'll post this code on GitHub for your reference, and please subscribe if you want to be notified of new videos. Thanks for watching the video.